Pierre-René Rogue, the third exalted confrérie of the Revolution, was a local of Vies in Brittany. He did all his consecrated service around there and was guillotined there on March 3, 1796, 3.5 years after the fact than his confrères in Paris. Before the modification of the formal schedule, Pierre-René had his own festival on the commemoration of his passing. For an extremely brief period, after the main corrections, his dedication was on May 8. He was brought into the world in Vies in 1758. He was a lone kid and maybe he never saw his dad, as he was brought into the world during his dad's non-appearance on a work excursion. His dad passed on that outing, away from home. Whenever he completed his optional tutoring, he enjoyed a year in Bourges with family members of his mom, and afterward got back and entered the diocesan theological school in Vies. This theological college was staffed by Vincentians. Aside from the two last long periods of his theological college concentrates on, he inhabited home with his mom, driving to the theological college every day for the talks and classes. The justification for this is that his wellbeing was viewed as delicate. He was a little man, just 4 feet 10 crawls in level, which is 1 meter 60. He was appointed in 1782 and delegated cleric to a permanent spot for elderly people, ladies. After 4 years he joined the congregation of the mission, however spent just 3 months in St. Lazare and got back to complete his standard year of the Assistant Theological College in Vies. Yet again the justification behind this was the delicate condition of his wellbeing. He was designated to show philosophy in the theological school, and was likewise associated with courses of philosophy for lay people, a reality which was to be significant for him later. A couple of years after the fact he was given the additional service of being a minister in the ward. Whenever the difficulties of the revolution came to Vies, the common specialists assessed that somewhere around 6 ministers, out of multiple hundred, would probably make the vows. In February 1791 a few clerics, including the vice-escheer predominant of the theological college, were called to a gathering with the common specialists. A composed outline of what occurred at that gathering has made due. It shows that the ministers consented to make the vow. Whenever Pierre-René heard this, he went to the prevalent and called attention to the harm that would be done, assuming the clerics of the ward heard that the better of the theological school had concurred than make the vow. He directed a letter for the better than sign, in which the prevalent expressed that he had altered his perspective and wouldn't make the vow. This letter was dated that very day as the gathering with the specialists. Nevertheless, around the same time Pierre-René actually conveyed it to similar specialists. Whenever this became known, the wide range of various clerics of the see who had demonstrated their eagerness to make the vow pulled out their arrangement. Because of this, just a single cleric in Vies made the vow. On April 20, 1791 the staff were ousted from the theological school and the items in the structure were set available to be purchased. The theological school staff tested this choice, calling attention to that in light of the fact that the staff had directed courses for lay people, the theological college was excluded from the new regulation. Likewise, it was excluded briefly reason, in light of the fact that the structure was the property of the congregation of the mission, which at that date had not been smothered by regulation. The specialists consented to a fractional monetary repayment, including fixed pay rates for the theological college staff. Pierre-René chose to place in a case additionally for back installment as an area curate, and was paid this too. He then put in a case for additional installment in view of pay he was expected from a benefice, which he had in Angers, which had been halted. This was likewise settled up. These monetary courses of action won by Pierre-René are extremely fascinating on the grounds that they are the specific inverse of what Louis Joseph François had been exhorting in Paris a few years sooner. He had encouraged clerics to deny any cash presented by the state for religious service. Pierre-René's view was that he had accomplished the work and in this manner ought to be paid. Pierre-René kept up with great relations with the town's thoughtful specialists, and he was not impeded in his area service. For judiciousness, however, he progressively presented an act of observing Mass in private houses. The way that he was a local of the town, just like the individuals from the common organization, was an assistance to him. He knew them actually and had been at school with them. His boss, however, was not from Viz, and Pierre-René encouraged him to leave the town, and he went to Spain. As the present circumstance in the town started to break down, Pierre-René needed to self-isolate, and he began to move around regularly, starting with one safe house then on to the next, to decrease the gamble of catch. His mom's home was continually watched with the expectation that he would visit her. In March 1795 the experts in Viz allowed an absolution to all clerics who were sequestered from everything, and sooner or later Pierre-René continued open service in the area. Soon thereafter, however, things deteriorated for the clerics in the town, and previous regulations and promises were brought once again into full power. On Christmas Eve 1795, when he was carrying viaticum to a debilitated individual, he was double-crossed by a person for whom his mom had secured work and who was all the while getting monetary assistance from her. This man and another man carried Pierre-René to the specialists and gave him over. They would not acknowledge him, since he had not been captured by the police. They offered him the chance to get away. He wouldn't do as such, saying that that would cross paths with their own bosses. He was attempted and sentenced on the charge that he had not made the different vows and had occupied with religious service. He was viewed liable and condemned as guillotined inside 24 hours. This occurred on March 3, 1796, and his mom was evidently present. He was venerated by Pope Pius XI on 22 April 1934 and by the same Pope on May 10, 1934, he was beatified. Blessed Pierre-René Rogue, pray for us.
Nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose. Pick a new silver excuse, I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember you're discreet now, get ready for defeat now. I'm gonna make you bleed out, listen on repeat now and weed out all the weak now. Get up and make a change, don't remember yesterday. If you got something to say, speak your mind before your grave, cause your life is yours to save. Ain't nobody gonna